Today I'll share the legend of Kurupira and why he has those feet. In contrast, its origin, why it's not strictly a Brazilian legend, the various Kurupira types, and some reported sightings. So let's go. You're Brazilian. It's hard to believe you've never heard of Kurupira, whether in television shows, cartoons, or even in some weird school games. You must have seen that forest spirit, the one with a head of fire holding a spear. Most importantly, he only scores with his heels since his feet are backwards, get it? Yeah, he's one of the most famous characters in our folklore. Like many Brazilian legends, it's hard to discuss because there are several versions depending on the region. Sometimes he's described as a goblin, sometimes a demon, sometimes a guardian, and he's even seen as a god of the forests. Camara Cascudo lists Curupira as one of Brazil's earliest myths, along with Jurupari, Ayanga, Boitata, Tupa, Pupiara, and others. I think Kurupira, like Boitata, is one of the few legends unique to the forests. I think it's hard to see him anywhere else, right? Like in the street, like Sachi might, or even in the bathroom. I've read reports of people seeing Sachi in the bathroom. I don't know what Sachi was doing there, but those reports exist. If you don't want to see Sachi in the bathroom, like the video, subscribe, share, and hype it up. It really helps me. If you want to learn more about Brazilian folklore and legends, check out the link in the pinned comment. I'll leave some earphones for you so you don't go bald, right? Set that headset aside and join the Discord too. Kurupira has various translations. Some say it comes from Tupi, combining kuru, boy, and pira, body. So, right? Boy's body. Because Kurupira is usually seen as, or takes the form of a young boy. But of course, there are also those who say that has nothing to do with it, because actually Kurupira would have tons of different appearances. And actually the translation would be something like covered in pustules, which I don't know what that is, pustules, or maybe scabby skin. Anyway, he's also known by other names like Kurupira, 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 Kaisara, and Matuyo. Anyway, if you Google it at home, or I don't know, for you who are different and use DuckGo, it'll show up. He is known as the guardian of the masks, protecting the animals and scaring off indigenous people and hunters who ignore nature's laws, especially those who disturb animals during breeding and nursing. And they also hunt beyond what's necessary for their survival. And loggers who cut down trees in a predatory way are also targets of his fury. The Kurupira legend often depicts him as a babysitter for young forest animals. If a weird guy shows up, it's his job to beat him up. It's even in his job description, beating up weirdos. Kurupira is usually described as a small being with long red or flaming hair, but his main characteristic is that his feet are turned backwards. Kurupira lets out high-pitched and shrill sounds to scare and confuse hunters and lumberjacks. He can also create illusions, making intruders get lost or go crazy in the middle of the forest. And he can turn the hunter's friends or family into the prey itself, making them end up killing their own loved ones. He can also make hunters' weapons turn on them and fire at themselves. In other words, he's kind of like Jean Grey. He has telekinesis. His heels face forward because he uses them as a way to mislead hunters. So when they follow Kurupira's footprints, they end up going in the wrong direction. Now that I'm saying this, that strategy won't work. But here's the info so it doesn't happen again. Actually, you can bribe Kurupira with some delicacies left in strategic places, or you can drop some braided vines or informational wood along the way. Kurupira gets a bit distracted by these things, so he ends up forgetting about his pursuit, okay? But anyway, how did the legend of a boy with his head on fire and his heels turned forward come about? And apparently, if you enter his territory and mess with the cubs, he'll kindly pierce your chest with a spear. That's what we're going to see now. The first account of the creator of the forest mohawk was made in 1560 by José de Anchieta, and then he said the following, which is well known. According to reports, there are demons called Curupira by Brazilians that attack natives, often at sea, sometimes injuring or killing them. Our brothers are witnesses to this, as they have sometimes seen those killed by them. Because of this, the natives usually avoid certain paths. These rough paths cut through thickets to the land's interior and up the highest mountain. They only bring birds, fans, arrows, and similar items as offerings when passing through here. Desperately pleading with the Kurupiras for safety, this account says the Kurupira was deeply feared by the indigenous people. According to Kamara Cascudo, the Kurupira is the main protector of the forests. Anhanga watched over big game, Kaipora the small game, and Boitata the grasslands. This created a career opportunity for Kurupira, so he chose to care for the whole rainforest. Do you know exactly where the legend of Kurupira came from? One of the ideas is that he might have come with the legends of Asian peoples when the pre-Columbian people set foot here. One of the legends similar to Kurupira, for example, that could have inspired Kurupira himself is Boraro, a Colombian legend, but I'll talk about it later. These legends became popular among a specific indigenous group in Brazil, according to myth geography. The Nawa would have remained in Mansil Lima municipality. Some members of this people can also be found in other acre municipalities, like Cruzeiro do Sul, Rodrigo Alves, and Rio Branco. And there are also Nawa families in other states, such as in the city of Porto Velho, Manaus, and even in another country, in Peru. Out of curiosity, the name Nawa really stood out to me. Nahuas are the indigenous people of Mexico who speak Nahuatl, including the Aztecs, who were part of this group. The legend was passed on to other peoples, to the Caribs, and from them to the Tupis. Guaranis came down from Venezuela through the Guianas, Peru, and Paraguay, and spread throughout Brazil. Anchieta. In 1560, he wrote that the Curupira attacked and killed indigenous people. Fearing this goblin, they left offerings for him, hoping he wouldn't harm them. However, in 1797, another priest named João Daniel referred to the legend as Kurupira. He said he walked naked with a shaved head and made noise in the forests, so that the indigenous people would offer him some kind of offering like cocoa or cloves. Another priest, Simão Vasconcelos, said the Kurupira was a spirit of thoughts who walked through the world of thoughts. As you can see, even in the colonial period, there were already multiple versions of the Kurupira. The legend varies greatly, partly because Kurupira inspired another famous Brazilian legend. Kurupira changed a lot when it reached southern Brazil. In that place, he became hairier and started taming wild oxen, and they started calling him by another name, Capora or Quesara. In Maranhão, the legend became known as Caipora, as mentioned in old chronicles and traditions from centuries past. All we know is that Kurupira would be a small, agile Indian with backward feet, red hair, or a bald head. He would be a powerful lord of the hunt and forest idol, guarding its secrets. The concept of inverted feet likely originated from European mythologies. Horacio and Alto Gelio used the name Scouros for this, to refer to those who had some kind of leg disability. Interestingly, even the Ephesian god himself appears with an inverted leg in some artworks. As time passed, Kurupira developed many versions depending on the storyteller. Now let's look at some of these Kurupiras. As you saw, even in the earliest accounts, there were already multiple views of Kurupira, much like what happened with our beloved one-legged trickster Sachi, who also has a video on this channel. The most famous Kurupira is small, boy-like, with fire-colored hair and backward-facing feet. There are also the previously mentioned Kurupira, who walks in the light with a shaved head, and another like a spirit of thoughts. In Amazonas, he may appear with a hairy body and a bald or shaved head. There are some unusual versions, like the one-eyed Kurupira, the Kurupira without a little tail, and I was very specific about that. But this Kurupira really exists, the one who has blue or green teeth and can't bend his leg because he doesn't have joints. In the south in Maranhão, Kurupira is called Caipora, a small being with normal, hairy feet who tames wild pigs. We also have Kurupiras from other countries, some of which inspired other legends in Brazil, and Kurupira himself, like Chula Chaque, which is a Peruvian legend. And Chula Chaque, according to what they say, is a very specific legend from the Peruvian Amazon. The name comes from Quechua Chula, which would mean uneven, and Chaque, which means foot. And Chula Chaque is described in the myths mainly as a demon with uneven feet. He always stays in the forest, waiting for someone who is careless. He can become anyone, such as a friend, someone close, or a long-absent relative. He uses this strategy to gain or the depths of the jungle from where not even a very experienced explorer would be able to escape. The only way to figure out this creature's trick is to watch its strange walk and notice its feet, which are quite different. Another is the Borero, a creature from Colombian Amazon folklore. He is described as a giant with dark, thick skin, huge ears, sharp teeth, and 3 legs, one lacking a foot. Like the Kurupira, the Borero has backward feet to confuse anyone following him, if you know what I mean. Some versions also claim he lacks toes and a belly button. Another odd trait is his knees lack joints, making it hard for him to get up if he falls. The indigenous people of the Rio Valpais region fear him due to his long, frightening howls that echo through the forest. When Borero captures someone, he wraps his arms around them and squeezes until they become a mass of soft flesh, without breaking the bones or tearing the skin. After that, he opens a hole at the top of his victim's head and sucks everything out until they're completely empty. He inflates the body like a balloon and lets it go, but the victim always dies in the process. And there's also the legend of Curupira over in Paraguay, but that legend was possibly created by a writer. So if you want to know more about this story, I have a video here on the channel about the 7 legendary monsters. Deep in the forest, I ended up seeing a kind of shadowy figure walking toward me. I didn't pay much attention to the guy. I thought, it must be Zé Marinero's son heading home since his father won't let him go to the party. Suddenly I hear a sharp whistle coming from behind and I thought, it's somebody who's going to have fun and is calling me. I stuck my head out and didn't see anyone. I let go again. Nothing. I kept walking. Another whistle cut through my ears. Another one, from everywhere. Whistles were coming from the bushes at the side of the road over the trees. I thought it was a bunch of owls and that they were bringing bad omens, and I got a chill down my spine. To calm down, I wanted to meet Zé Marinero's son, but I looked ahead and saw no one. Where did that little devil go? The chills kept surrounding me as always. I was already feeling dizzy and my heart was racing. Once again, I saw the little one before me. Looking closely since he was near, I realized he wasn't the Portuguese man's son. I knew that boy who was there. We were about 100 yards apart from each other. When the little one vanished again, the owl whistles wouldn't stop, so I grumbled. What a troublesome little guy, disappearing from time to time. That's not a good thing. He starts pointing again, so I shouted in a startled voice, really loud to intimidate the guy. Hey friend, what's this all about? Are you haunting me? He didn't answer anything. But then the whole forest started whistling, like it was a demon. The young man was now about 10 yards away from me. My blood was boiling, my head was burning, but he didn't say anything. The truth is, I went after the little one with a blind rage. Ah, you devil, you'll pay for this. I raised the stick, but before I knew it, my wrists were being held. I kept begging that thing to let me go, but it just stared at me with those blood-red eyes. I was like a cornered animal. I went at the guy with more anger than when I fought Antonio Pimenta at a rodeo. I remembered how brave I was. I was knocked to the ground and now, right there, mocked by some kind of young guy, we fought back and forth, up and down. I headbutted him in the face and kicked his shins, but he just stood there looking tough and mean. Minutes later, I heard a thunderous jaguar roar and thought the bad guy had left, but it was worse because other roars followed. A peccary was chattering its teeth. Wild cats were meowing. I heard a rattlesnake shaking its rattle. With just a few, Carina was on top of me as I lay on the ground, while animals stirred in the bushes and approached us. The trees bent over me. Hawks swooped down and vultures sensed my carcass. I felt a weak fear and gave up my strength. Shivering from the cold and sweating through my clothes, I said, I'm gonna die. My name is João. My eyes shut like a corpse's. I was unconscious for a long time, sensing creatures around me, led by a little devil, until everything faded to calm. My wrists were untied. Heat surged through me. I slowly opened my eyes. Everything was still and gone. The moon bright as day. I was exhausted from so much fighting. My tongue felt dry and stiff like a parrot's. When I opened my eyes, I saw neither the little man nor the wild animals. But then I got really scared and hurried to get out of there. I ran my hand around me, searching for my little bottle of moonshine and the tobacco logs to wake myself up. There's nothing better than a shot of cane liquor and a chew. But I didn't find anything. I searched but came up empty. I began to think everything I'd endured was just so the little devil could steal my bottle and tobacco. Old Uncle Pereira came to my mind with his words, "Curupira haunts you. To get rid of him, as soon as you see him, give him some cachaça and tobacco." I realized that night I had trouble with Curupira. I jumped up and wanted to run to Maria Benedita's shelter. The samba must have been lively. Just then, I looked ahead and the road seemed to stretch endlessly. I was afraid of another encounter, so I turned back, walking like a drunk black man, stumbling here and there, ending up in the field bumping into the cattle. My eyes burned, my blood felt ready to burst, and my mouth was dry. I was carrying a bunch of tortoises, but even so, I kept going, making my way to the door of the hut. I stayed silent and lay fully clothed in the hammock, which rocked like a canoe in rapids under my weight. If you liked the video and want more, comment below. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks. See you